guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we've got a really exciting one for you. We're actually going to be joined by a special guest for a Q&A session from 3IQ Digital Asset Management to talk to us a little bit about their platform and some of their crypto ETF offerings. Now before we get into it, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a huge help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below if you've heard of 3IQ before, if you've purchased any of their products, and how you think they stack up to some of the other players in this space. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so thanks so much for being with us today. We've got a really special one for you. We're joined by Mark Connors, who's the head of research at 3IQ Digital Asset Management, to tell us a little bit about this platform and some of the funds that they offer. So Mark, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Great, thanks Bryce. Yeah, so I joined 3IQ earlier this year, coming from a 30-year career in traditional finance, working at hedge funds as well as banks.
Okay.
Going everything from research sales into, more recently strategy, looking at markets from a global macro standpoint.
Okay. Nice. And yeah, I was going to ask about your background a little bit, and we'll get into that as we move through the presentation. But obviously a lot of experience you bring with you, Mark, and we were talking about that just before we started filming here. Now, what is it about 3IQ that attracted you? What brought you to this position? And what is it about 3IQ that separates this company from some of the other players in this space?
Great. Yeah, I did come here for a specific reason. So I left traditional finance, as we were talking about, because, I saw a lot of hedge funds working really hard, applying leverage, a lot of people power to try to make alpha. And they just weren't doing it, or very few were. And then when I teased and tugged and pulled at the cause, I really saw that the degree of debt and central bank involvement, it just channeled the markets into this risk on, risk off dynamic where there was really little distinction. So I went in and started to look at Bitcoin in particular, and then blockchain enabled technologies broadly. And I didn't want to get into anything that was levered. I thought the alpha was in just being in the space.
Okay. So
I like to have an asset manager dedicated to research, which by creating the roles of head of research, they were re-underwriting what Fred Pye started, a decade ago by stepping out and starting 3IQ.
Yeah.
So there was a legacy of innovation, and they continue it by saying, we need to tell this story because it's complex. And Mark, we want you to join us to do that. So that was really the draw. There was alpha by just showing up and explaining what was going on in blockchain.
Okay. And you kind of alluded to it there. I believe 3IQ was set up back in 2012. Is that correct?
Yes, as an asset manager 2012, and then became a regulated digital asset manager in January of 18.
Okay,
so
great.
Fred
yeah, and
personally
that's...
saw it.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, Fred personally, started navigating the digital asset journey on his own, and then decided that it was something he wanted to bring to the platform. And we got regulated in 18. We had the first ever Bitcoin fund in North America. And then we filed and did ETFs afterwards to make it more broadly accessible.
Yeah, in terms of the crypto world, 10 years is quite a history to have. And I was mentioning again that I've personally held some of these funds in my own portfolio and really like the offerings and the platform. So we'll get into that in a little bit here. Now, for people who are unfamiliar with 3IQ and the crypto ETF space, can you explain just what is a crypto ETF and how does this differ from just going out and buying Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Okay. So that's, and in light of what's going on right now, Bryce, and we, this is like elephant in the room. We have to talk about a high profile crypto player, FTX group that just filed bankruptcy, Bahamas and US. And they're unregulated. So one thing that we're hammering on this is that player was a Bahamas based unregulated player that advertised heavily in the US. And as we see, it didn't really end well for many. Apparently, we have to use words like allegedly and apparently, but with a bankruptcy filing, things are kind of gone to the ways of temporary loss to permanent loss. So back to 3IQ, we decided to bring the opportunity of Bitcoin and Ethereum to the investment world by wrapping it in a regulatory approved wrapper that you could put in your fund, in your investment portfolio.
Yeah.
And before that, people had to understand the complexities of sovereign ownership by going on the blockchain or going through maybe an unregulated exchange. And we saw what happened there. So I guess let's look at it as gold. You can go in and go down to 47th Street in New York and try to buy some gold physically and put it in your pocket and bring it home and put it in your basement. That's one way to do it. People like that. But there's some risks involved with that.
Yeah.
Such as, dealing with the counterparty you're not familiar with. Maybe they're unregulated. Maybe you don't walk out with your gold when you buy it. Similarly with Bitcoin, going to the blockchain is sound. It's a good way to do it. But it's not really accessible to many people. So what Fred and team did is they made the opportunity of Bitcoin, which is, we can go into what Bitcoin is later, and Ethereum in particular, accessible by wrapping it in first, put it in a fund that you can buy, but more broadly than going to wrapping it in an ETF. So here's what an ETF is. Exchange traded fund by definition. It is a certificate that we issue that has a claim on the spot or physical, in old terms, Bitcoin or Ethereum that we hold in a cold wallet, segregated, which was very different, again, going back to the theme of the day, what FTX allegedly did with their client assets. So we're going to address that straight on. We have audited, segregated wallets or accounts held in cold storage. We do not use leverage, which is, again, very different than the other failures that we've seen throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah, and FTX is really just the most recent one. I know we saw Voyager at the start of the year as well. And that's the biggest concern for me when we talk about crypto adoption is just the onboard and offboard process. Even if people want to purchase and hold this stuff, how do you go about doing that? And I think 3IQ really has come up with a pretty good solution to that question. And that was going to kind of be the follow-up is your investment safe? And because of the cold storage and the wallet that's offline like that, I think you definitely address that point. Now, talk to us a little bit about tax implications here, Mark, because I know that's a big question for a lot of people as we start to see more regulation in this space here in Canada and in the States. What are the tax implications of something like this?
So I'm, as head of research, I know we talked about this. I'm going to address this to the best of my ability from what I can say, because again, we are regulated, so I can't go down to give tax advice. We will say that given we're regulated, a lot of people do put this in a tax advantaged account. So what that means for you personally, obviously you have to speak to your tax accountant, but similar to, or analogous to an IRA or 401k, by putting an exponential grower in a tax advantaged account, that may be something that many people deem to be advantageous. So by providing the regulatory wrapper, we allow you to it is allowed to be put into a tax advantage account. So that's one of the main advantages of an ETF.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's personally how
we can share, Bryce. I can share that.
Perfect. I know tax advice gets a little sticky. That's exactly what I did personally, Mark, is I threw the QBTC fund in my TFSA or tax-free savings account here in Canada. And if you look at some of the long year projections on the price of Bitcoin, that's exactly what you want is a tax advantage or leveraged account. So now that we've talked a little bit about what the platform does, some of the security features, some of the differentiators, I know there's a few different funds or ETFs available on the platform. How would you recommend people choose the one that's right for them? Or what's your personal favorite or kind of go-to of the offerings there?
Sure. I'll go through the structures, I think. So we have two assets, Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yep.
and we have two different ways to own them. One through the fund, and one through the ETF. So I'll go through the structures if it's okay first.
Yeah.
So the fund structure, which both Bitcoin, ETH, and Ethereum have, provides annual liquidity. So you can sell in the secondary market, or you can choose, if you buy it today, you're buying it at a discount to NAV. So this is I would say a feature or a bug, depending how you look at it, in closed-end funds.
Yeah.
The liquidity is dictated by the manager. Sometimes there's no liquidity provided by the manager. A closed-end fund will just live in perpetuity, and it'll trade at a discount or premium to the NAV based on market demand. Today, our funds trade at I won't say modest, but at a modest discount, ranges between, say, 8 to 12%.
Okay. And
it gravitates towards the NAV as it gets close to that anniversary date. So if you have a long-term view, say, somewhere between 6 to 9 months, or I guess at this point, 9 months, it's advantageous to buy the fund because you're buying it below spot.
Exactly, yeah.
And then it'll collapse as it gets to the anniversary date. The ETF has liquidity daily. So if you are more not sure about your time horizon, the ETF will preserve that spot value because of market makers, it'll trade at the spot level. We have the best tracking error, we will say that, of any of the Canadian ETFs, the lowest tracking error. So it's the most efficient vehicle based on that metric.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think that's important to bring up investor time frame there. So thanks for sharing that, Mark. And there is a lot more information obviously available at the 3iQ website, and I'll leave a link in the video description below so you guys can check it out. And in addition, if you have any other questions for Mark, feel free to leave them below. Now, speaking of the funds, the evolution, the history of 3iQ, Mark, crypto is obviously becoming more and more mainstream. We've seen a number of announcements of big blue chip organizations getting involved in crypto this year. What are 3iQ's growth plans to meet this ever-changing and evolving market?
Well, I think they took the first step by hiring a head of research.
Yeah.
So, I come with 30 plus years of experience, and we're speaking to both the traditional retail route, the individual, the registered investment advisor, who's, shepherding a whole host of retail and many institutional, and the institutional accounts.
Okay.
So we're not just providing products, but now we're moving into solutions. And I'll give my only commercial isn't dedicated to our firm, but it's to the process.
Okay.
I don't think anybody should buy Bitcoin without doing 10 hours of work minimum. So if you want to know what to read, Digital Gold is an awesome book. It's a narrative. It provides context. It was done by Nathaniel Popper, and it was 2015. And the reason I bring that up, Bryce, is because what they wrote about in 2015 holds today. There's debasement in traditional economies. It's hurting emerging markets. That's now migrated to us, where our debasement in the loonie and in the US dollar is hurting people's ability to really save to buy a house. You can't do it with your wages. So love that book. There's a great start. And then our education through our website, not our education, but our publications, try to bring up points, provide other links to documents that can help you on your way. But that's it, because if you don't do that, you can be shaken out of the trade. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? What they dub FUD. And yes, it is there, but like even with this FTX dynamic going on now, this is Bernie Madoff. There are always going to be nefarious characters who try to are charlatans and hide in the dark and abuse good assets. That's what happened here.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm obviously bullish on Bitcoin long term, and I think this short term noise and these headlines are really creating quite a buying opportunity right now for people with that long term outlook. But you're totally right, Mark, in terms of doing your own research and Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto. These are one of those concepts that I find the more I read about it, the less I feel like I know about it, and there's so many different avenues. It's so complex, but it definitely is a cutting edge technology, and I think it's an important part of any portfolio from a personal standpoint. So, with that being said, that's a great segue, actually. What are your thoughts on the current situation we found ourselves with the price of Bitcoin, crypto, the crypto winter? And again, I know this is just a personal opinion, but what are your thoughts there, and when are we going to come out of this crypto winter, so to speak?
Yeah. So we can, I guess, talk about it. Coming from traditional finance, we have frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a bond trader, you look at duration, you look at yield curves. If you're an equity person, you might look at earnings and multiples. You say, well, what's the earnings? What's the multiple to get the stock price? So people need their tools to address it. There are always stories, and there's always fundamental research like, well, is the electric car industry going to take place? What's the regulation? There's always fundamental research to do too.
Mm-hmm.
So what I look at is the trilemma. This is something that I want to put in people's heads and say, you should look at any investment through the lens of how does this protocol satisfy the decentralization, which is an optimal character of digital assets, decentralized.
Yeah.
How does it handle security? So SHA-256, I'm going to throw my only technical term out there. Bitcoin uses it. The NSA uses it. It is all but impervious. Because we never say anything's perfect.
Yeah.
But it is a tremendous power. And we'll put a link into that. Is it 3 blue, 1 brown? A 5-minute video that this podcaster did on SHA-256. Let's put it in there. It's phenomenal.
Sure.
So decentralization, security, and scaling. Those are the 3 goals of a protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And no one achieves all 3. But when we look at Bitcoin, is it decentralized? Yes, it's been around for just shy of 14 years. And is it secure? SHA-256.
Yeah.
I'll throw some out there. The block wars made that distinction when they decided to protect block height. So to sacrifice scale for security. That was made. These are histories that are really profound because they have bearing going through here. So I look at that. So where are we with Bitcoin was your question. We look at it, and I look at, besides those 3 fundamental things, we look at the price. Now the price is below its 200-week moving average. Again, I'm using technicals here.
Yeah.
But when we look at it over any 18-month period, what I love about Bitcoin is that it still holds its exponential path.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is an exponential grower, which means from a mathematical standpoint, it actually doesn't have a normal distribution. Even Tesla and Amazon have a normal distribution, even though they've grown a lot higher and more than other stocks. They're not exponential growers.
Mm-hmm.
Exponential grower has an abnormal distribution. It punches far to the right, positive territory. And we have some publications that speak to that. But the point is, it actually reduces volatility in any 18-month period in a traditional bond and equity portfolio. I put that out there. It may be a bit above the pay grade of the retail investor, but I guess the point is this asset has a unique quality owing to its adoption. So stepping back here, what do we look at? How does it solve the trilemma? We still think it's intact. It is decentralized.
Yeah.
It is secure. And we think it's scaling through the Lightning Network and other layer 2s. So that's thumbs up. The other one is, does it sit below its 200-week moving average? Yes, sometimes, but not for long. So we're okay with that. And then the last point is adoption. And to your point, despite what happened with FTX, the institutions are coming. They need to come and adopt blockchain technology because their legacy stacks are not working that they've used for the last 2-3 decades. It's a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. They need to scale, and they can't in their existing platform. So those are the three ways I'll answer, is that trilemma intact, price path of an exponential grower still intact, albeit at the low end. And then adoption, which is really the gravity that pulls that price up in the exponential, is still intact, the adoption cycle.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal answer to that question, Mark, and really consistent with my.
I worked on it, Bryce. I've been practicing it.
Yeah, not your first rodeo. No, that's pretty consistent with how I'm looking at this too. And you're right. You need that confidence in the underlying investment to weather the storm here. And if you're not rock solid in why you're holding it and how it works, it is easy to get shaken off in times like this. And when you see pandemonium in the news and all the rest. So great answer to that question. And then to wrap things up here, Mark, any closing thoughts, anything you'd like to share with the viewers or subscribers? How do they get more information? Anything like that?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Information is important. We try to provide source documents in our pieces so you can make your own opinions and on it. 3iq.ca. Charlie Alpha for those in the US. In Canada, you know what it means. So 3iq.ca. And the last thing is, I came into this industry because I saw a problem in traditional finance. In traditional finance, when I started in the 80s, there were 46 primary dealers. Those are broker dealers that had the exclusive right and obligation to be at US Treasury auctions. It was a badge of honor to have.
Yeah.
Today, there are only 21, and only a third of them are U.S. The point is, adoption of U.S. Treasuries is shrinking. The U.S. government is becoming the buyer of last resort. It's negative adoption. It's the opposite of an exponential grower.
Yeah.
It's a late stage economy. So that's why I decided to come into an area where I think is the answer. The growth of the Bitcoin layer, the promise of Ethereum as a settlement layer, which has, I think, over 11 trillion of transaction value in 2021, more than Visa.
I actually quoted that in one of my previous videos, that exact stat. That's insane to think about, hey?
Yeah, and we have to remind ourselves, listen, we can't overlook the debacle of FTX.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the protocols that messed up. It was the charlatans that pulled the wool over people's eyes and didn't provide actual financials or any financials, it appears.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to end with that it doesn't feel good right now in digital assets. It doesn't feel good because of the blowback from FTX group. But those who don't hide in the dark will survive and prosper because the business plans are sound. They're unleveraged, like what we do at 3iQ.
Totally. Yeah, and this is where opportunity is found in investing in the market. And that was a golden point there you brought up, Mark. It wasn't the protocol that had the error, it was the people that had the error. And I think that's an important differentiation. So yeah, thanks so much for being here. We'll for sure leave a link to the article you mentioned and the 3iQ website in the video description below. Super curious to hear your guys' thoughts and comments on this interview, on the funds that are offered here. So feel free to leave a comment below. Mark, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciated having you on the channel, and we'll feel free to reach out with any additional questions. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you're still here, hopefully you found some value. So make sure you hit the like button before you leave. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. That's all for now, and we'll see you in the next video.
Great. Thanks, Bryce.